computer. There we go. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Connie. So I'm very happy to have Connie and Andrew and Barbara with us tonight. You may remember that we had Connie and Andrew as our speakers last year, talking about their their frequency, the trust frequency, which everybody I think enjoyed. And I'm really happy to have them back at this time of Thanksgiving with a special program. And I'm especially thankful that Barbara Kurfis could join us also as a representative of, a descendant of both the Pilgrims and the Pokanoket people nation. And so Connie and Andrew have written books and made films and are speakers around the country and on the internet, and be sure and watch them on Humanity Rising on the 24th. I think that's going to be great. I hope you've had a chance to watch the video that there's a link to in our email. It's a really interesting video. Would be good to see for tonight. Anyway, so I'm going to say thank you, Barbara, for coming, and I'm going to turn it over to Connie. And then I'm going to put everyone on mute. Everyone, please get on mute. And I'm going to put it in speaker view. Okay.
So, welcome everyone. We're just really happy to have you here. And I just wanted to say to Barbara, welcome. And Barbara's going to open with a prayer and a song. And then she's going to speak a little from her perspective and share that. And she may stay on for the whole evening, or she may leave because it's late. And we're going to do a PowerPoint and really give you lots of information. And so, Barbara, would you like to open us with a bit of a prayer?
Sure. Let us pray for the Great Spirit to guide us through these difficult times. Father, keep our mind in the right frame. Father, keep our eyes straight open to see the good. Father, keep our mouth to speak of love and peace. Father, keep our heart strong, but full of warmth and love to comfort the sick. Amen.
Were you going to do a song at all, or?
Oh, I thought it was at the end. You want me? I'm gonna remember the song we sang at the waterfall?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Way
yeah.
back.
This was
Wonderful.
many years ago.
Mm.
The humble song.
What's the song? It broke up.
The humble song.
A humble song.
I didn't want to leave you with a song at the end in case you decided not to stay up to midnight tonight.
Well, second win, I had a nap.
There you go. Yay.
Okay, we're gonna start. I'm gonna do the 4 honor beats. We gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of the Creator. We gotta bend down low. We gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of our Creator. We gotta know what He knows. We can raise ourselves in the eyes of the winged. Caw, caw, caw. We gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of the winged. We gotta know what they know. We gotta bend down low. We can raise each other up. Higher and higher we can raise each other up. I gotta turn the page because I can't remember all of this, so it's I have to sing it from the paper. So sorry for the. Okay, we gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of the four-leggeds. We gotta bend down low. We gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of the four-legged. We gotta know what they know. We can raise each other up. Higher and higher we can raise each other up. We gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of the swimmers. We gotta bend down low. We gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of the swimmers. We gotta know what they know. We can raise each other up. Higher and higher we can raise each other up. We gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of the crawlers. We gotta bend down low. We gotta humble ourselves in the eyes of the crawlers. We gotta know what they know. We can raise each other up. Higher and higher we can raise each other up. And we can raise each other up.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. And it's such a gift to have Barbara with us because she embodies that sense of us raising each other up, us coming together and raising each other up. And Barbara, would you like to speak briefly about your cultural experience, your perspective, and just bless us with your being
And wisdom.
and wisdom?
Okay, to start with, I'm a Pokanoket. Most people call us Wampanoags, but our ancient word for us is Pokanoket. We were given the name Wampanoag by the English when they came, because they couldn't understand the language, and they couldn't speak the language when they first came. I am the clan grandmother of my tribe and nation. I teach the culture because a lot of the women in my tribe don't know the culture. I walk in two worlds. Like I'm a descendant from Stephen Hawkins as well. So I was raised English, Scottish, and Native together, all together. So we celebrated everything. I really believe my perspective, as Connie says, my perspective is that we're all here at this time for a reason. And I believe we're all chosen to be here at this time for a special reason. And the reason is it's time for the people, the humans, the people, not just Black, not just white, not just Native, not just English, and everyone. It's time that we have to come together. We're in this world, the Creator put us all here for one reason, and that was to love one another and to help one another. That's what I was taught. That's what I grew up with. And I believe that in my life, I've seen that come true with my people, the Pokanokets, with my family, with myself, with my husband, with my children, with my friends. I wouldn't be the person that I am today if it wasn't for them and the Creator in how do I say it? Intervening in my life and changing my life, because at one time I was heavy into alcohol. I was heavy into not prescription medicine to deal with my emotional problem that I didn't know how to deal with. So I am very fortunate that the Creator saw me worthy and he healed me of these things. He set people in my life to help me. And through that, and through changing my heart, he changed my anger into love. And through changing me as a human and as a woman, my tribe found me. I was blessed to have that happen. They were looking for the lost families of Massasoit. I'm a descendant from the brother of Massasoit, whose name is Pokanoket. He also was at the first feast, which is now Thanksgiving. And that's how I think this is all put together. The Creator put all this together and all of us together to celebrate and to be so grateful for what we have today. Back in those days, it was tough times for the Pilgrims. They came to a land and didn't know what to expect and how to live. And fortunately, some of us helped them. And by Squanto helping them with the first planting, in the spring, that fall, they had a feast. And fortunately, they had a treaty. We had a treaty with each other. Like if any harm came, we would help each other out. We would support each other. And we had I think, a wonderful relationship. There was a language problem. There was an understanding problem at first. It, like any relationship, it takes time. And it lasted 54 years, I believe. But what they didn't understand is that we had the same God. We just called him by a different name. They prayed. We saw this at the first feast when they were saying the prayer over the meal. One of our men said, "Well, we do the same thing, only we call him Kiatan." And I was taught in my culture that Kiatan had a son called Weetux, and that is Jesus. And what the English or what the Pilgrims didn't realize or know is that Kiatan and Weetux came to us at Mount Hope with 3 women and from the water, and they called them the 3 sisters. And they taught us, Weetux taught us how to pray. And the 3 sisters taught us how to plant corn. And in the spring, when the first berries came, would be the strawberries. So we have ceremonies. We have 13 moons. We believe in 13 moons, and we have 13 Nakomos. One of them is a strawberry Thanksgiving, because the strawberry is the first fruit that the women saw. And there's a story about it, but I won't go into that because I don't want to take up everybody's time. But just to, I'm just so in my heart, I'm just so glad that I am who I am, and I know who I am, and I'm proud of who I am, where I came, what I've been through, what the Creator has done for me and shown me, and the people that I've met in my life. I'm now 75, going on 76. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I survived cancer. But for the grace of God, I did that. And I'm still taking medicine so to help me know that it won't come back. So I got a lot to be grateful for. And I got the most wonderful friends and the most beautiful people that I'm just can't be thankful enough. And I guess that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing your personal story from your heart. And thank you for the love that you carry for humanity and for speaking now in these times of coming forth with a native heart and native spirit. Because for me, that native heart is going to heal the heart of humanity because of the depth of the native heart, the connection to, as her song said, the crawling ones, the flying ones, the standing ones, all of creation. That connection is something that opens the heart of the rest of humanity who's been separated from that aspect of all of life. So it's just so important, and we just are so grateful for you, Mary. And now we're going to go forward with this PowerPoint that we have, because we're going to give you all a lot of information about this time period and some background for the evolution of consciousness, basically, and the evolution of the spiritual evolution of the United States. So hold on to your seats, everybody.
Strap in.
Strap in.
And I just want to say, Barbara, thank you so much. And everything that comes out of my mouth tonight, I would like it to come with the spirit of the truth and the wisdom that you just gave us. So thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to tell everybody that I'm wearing the necklace that Barbara gave me about 5 to 10 years ago. It's a necklace of Eagle Woman, and that's my native name, or my given name from spirit. And in the essence of the native way is the giveaway. And Barbara just said, oh my goodness, well, I have something for you, and gave me this necklace. So I just wanted to share that with you. So now we'll share our screen. And Barbara, hopefully you can stay on, but if not, because we're going to have a Q&A at the end, so you can ask Barbara some questions at the end, or all of us, if she stays on. And we hope you do, but we'll understand if you have to exit and then get some rest.
Yeah,
Okay,
Connie,
so
Yes?
Connie, I'm going to have to go in a little bit because I have to be up really early tomorrow for something. So will this be on, should we be doing record ourselves, or is it going to be later? Available?
It'll be recorded,
It
and
is recording right now.
I'll put it on my website.
Okay.
And Dottie is recording it.
And you can write to me for a link, and so
Okay.
it will be accessible.
Okay, and is this going to be in a book or something else as well, or? Only on the computer here?
I don't know what you mean.
Are you publishing it in a printed form in some way, or I'm not up on your latest printing?
No, we
know,
don't have it
no.
printed, but we have various presentations we've done. And
Okay,
we can let you know that.
okay, because I haven't heard anything for quite a while, so I'm
All
glad
right,
to be
thank you.
Okay.
back in touch. Okay, thank you. Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah,
You want to go to share screen,
yeah. So can we share screen? Do you have to make us
a host?
a co-host?
Dottie, or should we be able to do it?
Can you make us a co-host, Dottie?
What happens when you go share screen? Or you
I
don't
don't
see
need
it?
to make you a co-host. I just gave you the option, the ability to share the screen. So just push your share screen, the little green
Oh,
button.
share screen.
bottom.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Now get the right page,
There you go.
Here we go.
and then make sure you fill the screen with this.
Yeah.
I think we're getting there.
Okay, so here we go. Let's see, have to do it. Slideshow. Play from start.
There you go. But we shouldn't be seeing the stuff. on the
No, I know,
side.
it's firing up. Here it goes.
There we are. Look
Okay.
at that. Now you may want to take this and put it somewhere like over the top or along the bottom.
Okay. Okay, everybody, so here we are. And this is work Andrew and I have been doing for decades. And Andrew has written a novel called The Mayflower Revelations to bring forth this time of peace and friendship at the founding of this nation, the spiritual founding of this nation. And so you can access that on our website, the first 50 years, first50years.us, first50years.us. And so here we'll go and bring you the context for the coming together of the Mayflower Pilgrims and the Pokanoket Wampanoag Indians. So here we go. And the title of our talk is Giving Thanks Then and Now, Gratitude as a Vehicle to Higher Frequencies. So we're going to emphasize gratitude, higher frequencies on the evolutionary upward spiral. So we're big picture thinkers. And I know you folks at IONS are also big picture thinkers in the terms of consciousness. So I think you'll enjoy the perspective we're bringing. So we're addressing the spiritual evolution of the US of A, because the United States is a step in the evolution of consciousness. We believe the promise that the United States has made to the world. And so we feel that humanity is on an evolutionary upward spiral to peace on earth. That's a given for us. And so for us, everything serves this evolutionary upward spiral. And our origin story of this nation really depends upon our level of consciousness. And so it's been a swinging pendulum, because in the old day, when it was first started being told, it glorified the Pilgrims, which they deserved, and we'll go into that. But what it did, it left out the Indian. It left out the heart and spirit of the Indian and who they are and what they've been before we got here and what they've been since. So that pendulum was out of balance. And now the pendulum is swung over here where it's demonizing the Pilgrims to honor the Indian. And so it's just as out of balance now, if not more so, than it was back in the day when it had that vacant aspect of it, of who these native people truly were. So what do we do now? We go to a higher place. We say our story is taking it to the fulcrum of this swinging pendulum, because it's recognizing our common humanity, and it's recognizing the synthesis that occurred, that what we birthed when we came together in our hearts for that 54 years that Barbara mentioned. So that's the story you're going to hear tonight. And so this is a little something that I wrote decades ago when I first came in touch with the Native people, and what Barbara had just expressed of that connectivity to all of creation. So here it is. When we come together as equals, as family, and we each open our hearts and our minds to the other. And you could hear that in her song. That's what that song was. It was about lifting each other up. The melding of our gifts will bring a new perspective that is invisible at this time. This new perspective will allow us to see the path to true unity, peace, and freedom, because it's a process. We're in process. So we just have to trust that and know that it's leading us somewhere as we go through this process. So here's oh dear, what have I done here?
Just make this go away.
This got to go away.
There you go. It should be good.
And now I got to go back.
Okay.
Let's see. How do I get back?
Mhm. Is that it?
No. Here we go.
Oh,
There you go. You got it.
Yeah.
all right. So there's a prophecy from the Hopi people in Arizona, present-day Arizona. And it goes like this, and it seems to describe our time. When birds fall from the sky and the animals are dying, a new tribe of people shall come unto the earth from many colors, classes, and creeds, who by their actions and deeds shall make the earth green again. They will be known as the warriors of the rainbow.
So it's been in the prophecies of the native people that this time would come. And this is a time of this evolutionary leap in consciousness where we're healing this personal and ancestral trauma. So this process that we're in is so important of this healing, and that we're accessing a higher way of seeing, and we're moving into trust and into the understanding of the oneness of all of creation. And our hearts are opening as we access that reality that Barbara was singing about. And we're bringing peace on earth and heaven to earth together. And that song, Barbara, was just so perfect to introduce this whole thing we're speaking of. So we said we were going to address the spiritual origins of this nation, and we're going to give you the context of it. And we're going to go back to the big picture to give you a context that we're going to be speaking in. So
400 years ago, the early 1600s, there was a time of massive permanent change in the way humans globally, and especially from Europe, and the changes that were about to come in America, that were extraordinary and unprecedented. Prior to the 1600s, back in the early 1500s, the changes began. God was to be approached via the church, meaning the Roman Catholic Church. And God was seen as something you could call a distant patriarch. It was a male deity and was somewhere far away, a place called heaven, wasn't right here, right now. We were not in direct, immediate contact with God. And we needed a pope or a bishop or a minister as an intercessor. That's not the way it was in the Americas, and it's not the way the English, once the Bible was translated into English, it's not what it says in the Bible either. The Bible says we are to be in direct contact with the deity, with God. So that triggered something called the Separatist Movement. We've all heard of the Puritans. The Puritans were a movement starting in the late 1500s in England, who set out to purify the church. But it was realized by very few that that was going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to purify the church. So some said we must separate from the church. And the separatist movement began, and the most famous of those separatists are the Mayflower Pilgrims. Literally, they separated from the Church of England, moved to Holland for a period of time, and then came over here to this very town we're in speaking to you from, Plymouth, Massachusetts, and started a whole new reality going here in Turtle Island.
And their thing was based on this direct connection to God.
And then at exactly the same time, we had the reductionist scientific paradigm evolving. We had René Descartes, we had Isaac Newton, and eventually we had Darwin, and a whole other way of relating to the universe. It was very, very different from the God through the church way of understanding reality. And today we have quantum science, we have unified physics, and we have resonance science, all of which have aspects of the coming together once again at a higher level. It's as though a spiral has occurred, and we're back at the place we were before, but we're at a higher place where we are seeing a much, much bigger picture than we were capable of seeing 400 years ago. And we feel that this is going to trigger an evolutionary leap in consciousness. Our species actually has potential. It has not yet manifested. So, and the inspiration comes from direct connection to source beyond religion.
So that gives you an overview of where we're headed with this conversation. So
you see the heading on the left, there is split in the relationship to the divine in late 1500s England. So back in Europe, it was assumed that it would always be this way. We would have an absolute monarch, a king or a queen, who was the head of the church. And in Europe, of course, you also had the Pope, so it was a little confused and confusing. But in England, the head of the church was the king, was the monarch. And church attendance was required by law. If you didn't show up for church, you were in big trouble, and people were looking to see what was up, what was going on. Because not only were you not showing up for church, but you were throwing into doubt your fealty to the king. So the Bible being translated into English and distributed widely triggered, as I just said, the Puritan movement. It all started at Cambridge University back in the late 1500s, this attempt to purify the church. The separatist movement, the right to act according to one's conscience, and to separate from the church became necessary, and that act was an act of treason. So the Pilgrims were in big trouble back home. Wonder why they left? Had a lot to do with that.
yeah, and could everybody mute themselves who are, yeah, if everybody could mute themselves, that would be, there's a little background, not sound.
So the scientific paradigm, Descartes, Newton. Descartes was born in 1596, Newton was born in 1643, and science was changing. The way humans understood the universe was changing radically. But what happened is humanity we found ourselves separate from nature and separate from God, from the divine. The split in the human psyche, what does that mean? It means that fear, separation, and scarcity have taken over some of us versus the trust and unity that we may have had in the past. Individualism in the context of the materialist reductionist paradigm leads to materialism and domination,
So
which
this
puts
was,
us where we are right now.
yeah, exactly. And I see this as root cause, this scientific paradigm, this reductionist scientific paradigm, I feel is the root cause of all of our problems we have today. We don't feel there are any problems because everything is serving as we go through this process. But so this split was happening with this scientific paradigm that was separating us from nature and the divine. And here are the separatists connecting to our direct connection to the divine. So here is two movements moving simultaneously out of England and Europe. And so just to put it in context for this whole divisiveness that we have going on, this whole split we have going on right now, today, because we all bought into this scientific paradigm. And now, as we mentioned, there's ions, there's Nassim Haramein, resonance science, there's Jude Currivan, there's this new physics that's shifting this scientific paradigm that we feel is key to us rejoining our hearts and our spirits and going forward and creating a new way of being on the planet. So here we have the movement from monarchy to democracy and this innate desire to be free. So we want to emphasize that we've always had this desire to be free, this desire to align with our hearts because it's our true nature. But we've had to go through this process that we're in now and that we're coming to the end of, with this evolutionary leap in consciousness that's about to occur or is in process of occurring now. Mute my was I muted? Were we muted? Is everybody hearing us? Everything's okay.
Good.
Okay, so here's from monarchy to democracy, the key seminal moments in this process. And the Magna Carta in 1215 was the Charter of Liberties in Europe. It lasted, what did it last, 6 weeks or something?
Lasted a very short time. It was in England, in fact. Mhm.
Yeah. And then the Iroquois Great Law came to the Iroquois in the 1200s. And we're not going to go into that at this point, but it's a key piece of understanding that this understanding came to the Americas in the 1200s, a similar time that the Magna Carta was coming forth. And then in 1606 was the Scrubby Covenant, which we'll go into in more depth. And the Scrubby Covenant was the covenant, the agreement that the Mayflower Pilgrims made amongst themselves as they separated from the Church of England. And then the Mayflower Compact in 1620 was when the Pilgrims came over here in the cabin of the Mayflower. They drafted the first document of democracy, which was the basis of their agreements amongst themselves and became a foundational document for the US Constitution, as did the Iroquois Great Law. So we just wanted to give you a little time frame. Timeline for that.
Leading to the Continental Constitution in 1787.
Yeah.
So you can think of that whole sweep of history as an unfolding or an evolution of consciousness. And you can put that in the political context of moving from absolute monarchy to the freedom or the relative freedom, at the very least, of democracy. that there was this massive transformation that happened within human society.
And here's the
over that
Scrubby
period.
Covenant. And these people, they met in secret in England because they saw that they were going to have to separate from the Church of England, which was treasonous, as we mentioned. The Puritans stayed within the church and wanted to purify the church. The Separatists realized, and they were pastors in the church. They were educated, Cambridge educated people, and they saw that that the Bible intended, that God intended us to relate directly to the divine through our inspiration, through our conscience. So this is a very big deal. We just want to emphasize that what these people did, moms, dads, and kids, they stood up and committed treason against the King of England and separated from the Church of England and had to meet in private and in secret. So here's the Scrubby Covenant. As ye Lord's free people, notice that word free, joined themselves by a covenant of the Lord into a church estate, in ye fellowship of ye gospel, to walk in all his ways, made known or to be made known to them, according to their best endeavor, whatever it should cost them, the Lord assisting them. Well, we've written a book called The Trust Frequency. Okay, this little statement is an embodiment of walking in total trust of a conscious, loving universe. Okay, so this was 1606 with these separatists. And I could recognize, when I started to study this, I recognized in them the fact that they lived a spirit-guided life. And I have a feeling that every one of you here lives a bit of a spirit-guided life. And so I just wanted you to see this little covenant, this agreement that they made amongst themselves to the Lord, to their conscience. So King James was an absolute monarch. He was head of the Church of England.
And his attitude was expressed in this sentence: I will harry them out of the land. He wasn't having any of this separatist stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
So they had to escape England. And it was against the law to leave England, so they had to go by secretive means to get out of their mother country. So just think what that meant for these people, to have to give up their mother country and go to Holland, where there was religious freedom, where they could do whatever they worship in whatever way they saw fit. And this is very similar to the Native Americans. Okay, the Native Americans were prevented from worshiping according to their conscience, according to their ways. So once people recognize the similarities between the Pilgrims and the Native people and what they were seeking, it'll shift everything. Instead of associating the Pilgrims with the reductionist paradigm, people being driven by the materialistic ways, these folks were driven by this desire to be free. So here we have the Pilgrim Trail, the Scrubby Covenant in 1606. They escaped from England in 1609 and arrived in Leiden, Holland. They were lecturers at the Leiden University, and they were tradesmen there in Holland. Because they were foreign, they had to be in the guild system in a lower trade, menial trades. And they then left Holland for America in 1620 with visions of a society based on the freedom of conscience. And they drafted and signed the Mayflower Compact in 1620 when they came, before they landed here. And then in 1621, in the spring of 1621, they connected with the Massasoit and a creator-based spirituality. So we're going to show you the spiritual alignment of the pilgrims and the natives they met. And this is the birth of the American mind, the first great synthesis. We call it the first great synthesis. So they signed the Mayflower Compact, and we'll share the Mayflower Compact with you. They had a Wampanoag treaty, the Pokanoket treaty, and in 1621, and then there was the 3-day harvest feast and 54 years of peace that followed on that. So we want to go into more depth here with the Mayflower Compact. So would you like to read that, Andrew?
Okay. So this is the agreement they made before they came ashore. They realized they had to have some idea of how they were going to govern themselves. And this document is regarded as one of the early documents of democracy, that New England, actually this idea just inspired and informed the way New England developed, and all the way to the Constitution. So this day, before we come to harbor, observing that some were not well affected to unity and concord, but gave appearance of faction, it was thought good that there should be an association and agreement, so that we should combine together into one body and submit to such government and governors as we should by common consent agree to make and choose. We therefore set our hands to this that follows word for word. And this is the actual compact. Having undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith and honor of our king and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these presents solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation and furtherance of the ends of aforesaid. What was the missing word there? Aforesaid what? Ends of aforesaid, and by virtue hereof to enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience.
So there you have it, equal and just laws serving the common good and creating offices and officers and promising all due submission. So we elect offices and officers, we create officers and we listen to them and swear.
Very different from the way things were done back in England under the king.
Yes.
Very different.
And Barbara brought up a point. She said, well, they're separated from the king, but then they swear due allegiance to the king.
So they still were honorable Englishmen, but they were in a process of change here. And I don't know that they knew where it was headed. They were just doing what their hearts told them to do.
Yeah, exactly. So here is the arrival and meeting. And here we have, they sight land in November. They draft and sign the Mayflower Compact on November 11th, 1620. There's a first encounter with the native people that actually, the native people actually attacked them a bit in their first encounter in December, but nobody was hurt. And they carried on and arrived in Plymouth on the 18th of December in 1620. And this was during a mini ice age. And it was very cold, and they had to wade into shore because the shallop wouldn't get all the way to shore. So they suffered diseases, the general sickness during the winter of 1620. They lost half of their people during that winter from scurvy and the cold weather and unfamiliar organisms in the water. And then in 1621, in March of 1621, Samoset came into the village and welcomed them. And later in March in 1621, they formed a treaty with Massasoit. And then in the fall of 1621, they had the 3-day harvest celebration we call the first Thanksgiving. So we just want to give you a sense of the timeline of what occurred with their arrival. And so we want to give you the context then and now of what was going on here in New England. And we're bringing in these pandemics because right now we have a pandemic and it's affecting everything as far as how we go forth into a new way of being. And so we're bringing in the grief, the loss, and the transformation. And these pandemics, there was a regional pandemic in New England in 1616 to 1618. It's called the Great Dying amongst the native peoples before the Pilgrims arrived. And then there was the local epidemic of the Pilgrims who died during the first winter. And now we have a global pandemic. So we want to show this context of then and now so that we can see the transformative aspects of huge change that comes with a pandemic. So in New England, before the Mayflower, there was the Great Dying.
And the Great Dying, I think most of you know that before English settlement was even possible in New England, in the American Northeast, something happened, and that was literally a pandemic, an epidemic of disease that had come from China originally and all the way across Europe, and finally over hundreds and hundreds of years, making its way across the Atlantic and coming down the coast of present-day Maine into Massachusetts and wiping out the coastal Indian tribes. And the Indians to this day call that the Great Dying. And I'm just going to put my glasses on and just make sure I get this right here. So a quick rundown of New England before the Mayflower, between 1607 and 1616. Before the Mayflower, there was a network of confederacies. The Iroquois Confederacy inland, the Massachusetts Confederacy, which was a large chunk of New England, the Wampanoag, which included the Pokanokets, the Wabanaki, and other groups of local native people in various states of collaboration, cooperation, and competition with one another.
And one thing we have to make clear here is Wampanoag actually did not exist
As a word,
as a
term.
word or term. So there wasn't a Wampanoag Confederacy. So we need
Right.
to change that because we're learning and growing as we've come into association with Barbara and the Pokanokets. And so there was the Pokanoket. It wasn't a confederacy, I don't believe, at the time. But meanwhile, we'll go on.
Okay, so there was a war that hardly anybody has heard of, and I have personally spoken to New England historians who've never heard of it. It's called the Tarratines War, and it's an intertribal conflict over competition for the French fur trade between the people today that we call the Micmac, and in those days they were known as the Tarratines, and I'll tell you why in a minute, and the Penobscot. And that competition resulted in a war, and it actually got into some serious violence, and the violence spread to the Massachusetts Confederacy, who were aligned with the Penobscot. The Micmac were called the Taratines by the Basque fishermen who came here, and that's how that word comes down to us. This intertribal war led to a great and general plague, in the words of Sir Ferdinando Gorges, in a book that he published in 1658 in London. And today it is known to some as the Great Dying. The coastal indigenous population was decimated.
Yes, and so we're going to have to move right along because look what time it is. It's 11:15. So
Yeah,
we're going to have to move right along, folks.
time
So
flies when you're
time
having
flies.
fun.
So the Mayflower Pilgrims suffered the general sickness, and they lost half of their people during that first winter. And what the people who survived were 4 adult women, 14 adult men, and 34 children, and who attended this 3-day harvest celebration in the fall of 1621 with 90 plus Native Americans. And so that's, I think I just want to keep moving here now.
Okay.
So now we have this global pandemic that's over 5 million people have died in this global pandemic. So we're in a time of transformation now. And this grief and breakdown and rebirth is what happened then in Plymouth at that time. And it led to gratitude and shifting frequencies and bridging differences and synthesis. So both the Native people and the Pilgrims had suffered these great losses, and we're in this time of gratitude and grief and shifting frequencies. Things change in a time of grief and loss and gratitude. What?
And gratitude for what?
Gratitude for each other.
For each other.
Yeah.
The Pilgrims and the Native Americans, both of whom had suffered horribly, I believe, were truly grateful for the relationship that provided both security and friendship and huge opportunities for all concerned. Very important moment.
Yeah, and in the spring of 1621, something new is born. In walks Samoset into the village of the Pilgrims, and he says, "Welcome, Englishmen."
In English.
Can you imagine the gratitude that these folks felt?
The relief.
Yeah, the relief and the gratitude. And what came of that was a mutual protection agreement in March of 1621 that started this 54 years of peace and friendship. And here is some information about that treaty that led up to the treaty. He said, "Our messenger made a speech unto him, saying that King James saluted him with words of love and peace, and did accept of him as his friend and ally, and that our governor desired to see him and to truck with him and to confirm a peace with him as his next neighbor. He liked well that speech and heard it attentively, though interpreters did not well express it. After salutations, our governor kissed his hand, and the king kissed him, and so they sat down. Then they treated of peace." And this is with the Massasoit, the brother of Quataquina, who Barbara is descended from. This is the great leader, Massasoit. So here we have words of love and peace, and these leaders kissing each other and sitting down and treating of peace. And here is the treaty.
That neither he nor any of his should do hurt to any of their people. 2, that if any of his did hurt any of theirs, he should send the offender that they might punish him. 3, that if anything were taken away from any of theirs, he should cause it to be restored, and they should do the like to his. 4, if any did unjustly war against him, they would aid him. If any did war against them, he should aid them. 5, he should send to his neighbors' confederacies to certify them of this, that they might not wrong them, but might be likewise compromised in the conditions of peace. 6, that when their men came to them, they should leave their bows and arrows behind them. And 7, that King James would esteem Massasoit as his friend and ally.
So
That's the treaty.
That's the Mutual Protection Treaty.
And they stuck to it for 54 years. And of course, the Department of Native American Immigration was sitting around waiting for these people to, to come and bring their paperwork. And one of the Indians says, "Chief, signing executive order letting you stay in country." So without that, they would have been sent back. But the natives now, wait a minute, are we kidding? I think we're kidding.
Yeah. So here we have this, the sorrow and the grief and the gratitude that led to this 3-day celebration that we call the first Thanksgiving. So here we have it, this intercultural feast. And this is the only extant description of what went on during that harvest celebration.
Our harvest being gotten in, our governor sent 4 men on fowling so that we might, after a special manner, rejoice together after we had gathered the fruit of our labors. They 4 in one day killed as much fowl as, with a little help beside, served the company almost a week. At which time, amongst other recreations, we exercised our arms, many of the Indians coming amongst us, and among the rest their greatest king, Massasoit, with some 90 men, whom for 3 days we entertained and feasted. And they went out and killed 5 deer, which they brought to the plantation and bestowed on our governor and upon the captain and others.
So here we are at Thanksgiving this time now. And we just wanted to share with you that this is the 3-day harvest celebration we call the first Thanksgiving. That was these folks coming together in gratitude of a harvest and gratitude of their friendship
Their relationship.
and
yeah.
their
Mhm.
relationship. And I don't think we'll run this.
This is a little video we made, but we can pass on that.
We'll Yeah. So what we want to show is the spiritual alignment of the natives and the pilgrims. So Barbara spoke of this, and so we just wanted to read you a description written by the pilgrims from an encounter they had with the native people. They were in the home of one of the leaders, and they wrote this: "Further, observing us to crave a blessing on our meat before we did eat, and after to give thanks for the same, he asked us what was the meaning of that ordinary custom. I told them that whatsoever good things we had, we received from God as the author and giver thereof, and therefore craved his blessing upon that we had and were about to eat, that it might nourish and strengthen our bodies. And having eaten sufficient, being satisfied therewith, we again return thanks to the same our God for that our refreshing." This all of them concluded to be very well, and said they believed almost all the same things, and that the same power that we called God, they called Khitan. So all of these quotes that we're reading you come from a journal by Edward Winslow, and they were published in 1624. So these are firsthand accounts of what went on during that time. And so here we have the Plymouth paradigm that Betty Booth Donahue, a Cherokee author of Bradford's Indian Book, which was a book where she showed the influence of the native people on William Bradford, the governor of the Pilgrims,
And on his writing. Mhm.
and on his writings. So Betty says, "Pilgrims and natives were as much alike as they were different. Both groups were highly religious, and they understood the power of the spoken word. The Pilgrims did not arrive with the idea of taking land from natives. They bought it. now what's going on?
Mhm. Yeah.
They visited with each other, exchanged ideas and information and goods, and understood each other. They lived in close proximity to each other. Indians lived inside the stockade and came and went at will. And the Pilgrims viewed the natives as sentient human beings and valued their opinions as much as they feared their savagery. There was mutual respect. Had other colonies followed Plymouth, things would have been very different for natives and whites. Much suffering and loss of life and culture would have been avoided. And Betty's going to be with us on the 24th. So please join us and meet Betty at the time. So I think we'll skip this part. The Pilgrims actually saved the life of Massasoit with a conserve when he was dying. And so this just solidified the friendship, but we're going to keep going. And one quote we wanted to show here was this quote where Winslow says, after visiting with Combatant, actually one of the leaders who wasn't very favorable towards the Pilgrims, he had visited him on his way to saving Massasoit. He said, after visiting with Combatant at his house, he demanded, how durst we, being but two, come so far into the country? I answered, where was true love, there was no fear, and mine heart was so upright towards them that for mine own part, I was fearless to come amongst them. So this gives you a sense of what was going on there, what the feelings were between these folks. And then there was the gathering storm, as this high vibration energy between the Pokanokets and the Pilgrims, things were gathering, situations were shifting from this high frequency to a lower frequency. And in 1630 to 1640, the Great Migration occurred, and 20,000 English settlers, the Puritans, came and formed Massachusetts Bay Colony, as well as Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York. So pressures were coming forth. And so I'm going to keep moving here. And Bradford, the governor of Bradford died, Massasoit died. So these high frequency energies of these leaders was being passed on to the next generation, and things started to disintegrate. And so, as we all know, there's a high frequency that some people carry, and those two leaders kept their people in peace. But as it went into the next generation, and as these other people arrived, that vibration decreased. And so this shifting frequencies occurred. So we went into a lower frequency, and war became the way. War replaced diplomacy with Metacom Rebellion, also known as the King Phillips War. And so this violence replaced diplomacy, and this, what really was a civil war, because these people had been in friendship for 54 years, a whole generation. And so after 1675, after the end of King Philip's War, they became the enemy. The Indian became the enemy. And essentially the Native Americans disappeared from the history books, and especially the Pokanoket people, because they were sent off as slaves off to Barbados and the West Indies. So the whole thing shifted. We've given a sense of a period of time that was the planting of a seed of what can be birthed when we come together in our hearts. And this the spiritual beginning of this nation. But as we know, and as we're witnessing right now, that the different frequencies and the divisions and differences of frequencies that lead to extreme challenges. And as we know right now, we're in the middle of that challenge. And here is the second great synthesis. We just wanted to mention the second great synthesis. We call that the first great synthesis that time with the Pilgrims and the Indians at 54 years. And here's the second great synthesis, which is the Iroquois Great Law, which we mentioned that had come to the Iroquois in the 1200s. The Iroquois Great Law influences the US Constitution. So this we're calling the second great synthesis. And now we're going forward into the third great synthesis as we come together in our hearts now. And so now we're in a world out of balance, and we have this global pandemic. And what we're in the middle of is now this grief and breakdown and rebirth, just exactly, not exactly, but similar to that time at in Plymouth and with the Pokanoket and the Pilgrims during this is the 1600s, 400 years ago. And so now we have this time of gratitude that we're going into tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but with Thanksgiving, this time of looking at each other and looking in gratitude for what we have and into shifting frequencies and into synthesis and bridging differences. Now we have that challenge of how to go forward. And if we go forward with gratitude into our Thanksgiving, we can raise up and come together with our families in a higher frequency and see what wants to be birthed. So the third great synthesis brings, and
this is our idea of what is actually, we're at the very beginning of something very, very profound for humanity. It brings a new perspective, healing, no shame, blame, guilt, anger. It brings understanding and compassion. We learn to listen to one another. We learn to honor the humanity and divinity in all of us. We learn how to go forward together, birthing a new way of being.
So from our perspective, this coming together, all of humanity, and specifically with the Indigenous people, and embodying what this song that Barbara sang to us, because it takes us into our hearts and it takes us into our relationship with all of creation. And we go into this humanity 2.0, our evolutionary leap in consciousness.
What does that mean? Humanity 2.0, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek term, sort of from the computer world, but the next iteration of humans could just be an evolutionary leap beyond where we are right now. What does that mean? The fully evolved human manifests the best features of all previous cultures. We are part of nature, not above it, aware of the scientific perspective, yet not ruled by it, tuned into a higher reality, yet fully present in the world. A synthesis occurs, which brings forth something that has never been on the planet before.
And we have this idea of pan-indigenousness as we access our hearts. The principles found in Indigenous thought, the way of life of the native peoples of the Americas, and the essence of most tribal or traditional cultures throughout the world are principles which resonate to the deepest aspirations of all of humanity. This can be called pan-indigenousness, the common thread that ties the heart of humanity together in a vision of a world in balance. So we have this expanded paradigm. We have this connectivity to the oneness and sacredness of all life. And quantum mechanics and unified physics and ions is bringing this forth, because we're able to take our Western mind, our logical linear mind, and say, oh, okay, science is proving something. Science is showing us that that old reductionist paradigm is over, and that the systems created in alignment with that old paradigm are crumbling, and we have an opportunity to create a new way of being.
Quantum reality illuminates and informs the Western paradigm, expands our understanding of the nature of the universe, which allows us to align with the indigenous worldview.
Which is this pan-indigenousness, because it's the thread that lives in all of us. And as you know, you folks know, you're very familiar with the concept of quantum entanglement, that we are one essential entity.
We are all profoundly interconnected. Creation is one, despite the multiplicity. And the observer effect, the fact that through our interaction with reality, we actually help to bring that reality into being. What we put our attention on creates what we experience.
And this gives us a sense of our responsibility, because we are creating reality with where we put our attention. So this is a key piece of all of us who have a sense that there is a bigger reality, that there is a purpose to everything. It's so important that we keep our attention on that. If we can't give you anything else to leave this with, it's that importance of our responsibility of staying in association with our hearts, connecting with our hearts, and understanding the sacredness and oneness of all life, and keeping our focus there. And understanding that it's this understanding of a conscious universe, that it's a conscious, loving universe, which is the work that we do to bring forth the understanding that it's not only conscious, but it loves us. And Jude Currivan is now speaking from that perspective of the science of love. We were just on with her recently, and she's really bringing forth this science of love, that it's a conscious, loving universe. So here we have the aspects of the indigenous worldview that we're moving into. And don't forget, this is pan-indigenousness. So it's in our essence, it's who we are. And so this pandemic has given us the opportunity to connect with those aspects of ourselves through our grief, through the breakdown, through the transformation that's been brought forth through this very unique situation that occurred, well, I say very unique, but it occurred back in the 1600s, and here it is now transforming us. So here's the aspects of the indigenous worldview: respect and reverence for all of life,
Interrelatedness of all things and actions,
the co-creative power of thought,
concern for future aspects of present action,
living in balance,
concern for common good,
trust in a higher power,
incorporation of metaphysical into physical reality,
equality of all aspects of life,
sharing,
cooperation. So we're accessing higher frequencies where, as we open our hearts and we access this pan-indigenousness of all people, we move into a higher frequency. And in this higher frequency, we understand that there's meaning to everything, and that everything is okay, that we are powerful and we trust and we understand that it's infinite balance and cooperation. So we see that it's a conscious universe, that it's a loving universe, and that there's free will, and we're on an upward spiral, and there's no time, it's timeless, and there's the oneness of all life. So we just want to give this idea of this upward higher frequency, because that's what's available to us now on the planet, is a higher frequency energy, and we're responding to that higher frequency. So we just want to thank you so much. And let's see how we're doing for time, if there's any time for Q&A. A little bit. So there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And so here we are. What'd you think of that?
I just hope it didn't get too rushed at the end there. We had a lot to cover.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. It's great. Elaine, did you have a question?
I do.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go ahead because I know you're really tired.
All right.
I'm hanging in here. This has been so riveting. I couldn't not be here. Thank you. It was just, and I just wanted to know how to contact you, Connie and Andrew. I've been Googling while I was listening and while we were doing this, trying to find a way, a website or something to contact you through, and wasn't having really any luck. But there are some pieces of information I'd like to share with you and have some contact that way. I want to, yeah, we're on the same page.
Oh, great.
In so many ways. Good heavens, it's the work I do too. So, how would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, our email is trust@thetrustfrequency.net.
I'm trying to write that down as you speak. Okay.
Trust@thetrustfrequency.net.
Trust@thetrustfrequency.net.
Can you put it in the chat?
And I can put it in the
That'd
chat.
be great.
And also our
Okay.
website is thetrustfrequency.net. And the
Okay.
first 50 years, it's our website for the first 50 years project is first50years.us. So Dottie, I don't know if you can put it in the chat for us.
It's not working.
Right.
No,
Can
I
you put
can't,
that in the
but-
chat, Dottie?
Or can
Oh,
you put it in the chat?
I think it's in the email that I sent out for the meeting.
No,
It should
I
be,
can-
yeah.
I tried to find it in there and I couldn't.
So I can put it in the
So-
chat, but I'll put it in
Yeah.
the
Okay, when
chat.
I send out the
I see.
recording, I'll send out the
Okay,
email.
yeah, why don't you do that? Because I'd love to have Barbara step in and comment on her
Okay,
thoughts.
Thank you.
If anybody has any questions for Barbara, let's make sure to honor her. Barbara, you're
Thank
still
you.
here. Bless you.
Yay, Barbara. So what did you think? And because Barbara's very connected to this concept of frequency and us going together in our hearts and all that. So what are your thoughts on what we just presented, Barbara?
You're muted, Barbara.
Sorry. I'm right with you because I do believe in the rainbow prophecy. I've had visions and I've had contacts with the spirit world and I've had things told to me and shown me. So I know what's going on. So
Yeah, tell us about it.
this is a beautiful thing. Well, for one thing, when I was trying to find where I belong, because there's so many bands, of Wampanoags. So I wanted to know exactly which band I belong to. In the process, I prayed about it. And I even went to the Indian Affairs in Boston and talked to a gentleman on the phone. Well, he says, well, go to powwows and they'll help. And if they see who you are, they'll take you in and they'll teach you. Well, here I sit 20 some odd years later, and I've had elders teach me, medicine people teaching me. But what taught me the most is that I had an experience. I worked the third shift. I came home one morning and sat in a chair. The next thing I knew, I was in front of the council oak tree in Dighton. Now, I don't know, the council oak was our special ceremony place at Massasoit, and my people would do ceremonies. They did weddings, all kinds of stuff there. Well, I found myself in front of this tree. The tree formed a porthole, and I floated inside of the tree. And inside the tree, it was set up like a lodge. And the ancestors, which were my ancestors, came around in front of me, and they each offered me a basket of blueberries, a round basket of blueberries. The first person that came to me told me she was my grandmother, my ancestor grandmother. She had black hair, had bangs, and hair like mine, and she had a dress and a cape made out of turkey feathers. She told me I had to make the dress and the cape, which I did it later on. That went. Then a man came, an Indigenous man, and he told me his name. He told me he was Massasoit. And then Quataquina, right behind him, said he was Quataquina, my grandfather. And then there was one more, and he was King Philip. So they all offered me. I didn't understand the blueberries, the basket of blueberries at first. I had to go to a medicine person to tell this vision I had. So then that all went away, and they all came. Each one had a basket. One had a basket of sweetgrass. One had a basket of tobacco. One had a basket of sage, and one had a basket of cedar. All the 4 sacred herbs, and they're offering it to me. I look down and I see my moccasins in front of me, and I see bare feet, and my hands, I would turned into a bear. When I turned into a bear, a screen, like a TV screen, came up, and it showed me this vine, like on close to the ground, and it had little berries, and it had little tiny green leaves, and it said, a voice said, "This is your medicine." So I looked it up after I wrote all this down, and after the vision went away, I looked all this stuff up. As it turned out, it was bearberry. So that's my medicine. Then the grandmother came, she had a basket, and in the basket was a stone. And I'm going to show you the stone. Ouch, hold on. She showed me this stone. See the mark on it?
Uh-huh.
The X, like an X. She said, "This pertains to you." Well, I didn't have this stone when she showed it to me. She said, "This pertains to you. I found this stone down by the water in Lakeville at the Wampanoag Cemetery." And what else happened after that? Then I floated, then all that went away, and I just floated back out and woke up and came to. And this is before the tribe accepted my family in. So it was telling me who I was. The vision was showing me who I was, who I came from, confirming my genealogy, confirming what I knew, and showing me what was going to happen, that I would become who I am today with the tribe, and that certain things show my rightful place, stuff like that. And Connie, this is, I can't find the King James. I think I lost it. This is a coin. This is the Sacagawea coin with the carver in Massasoit's hand doing the treaty with the shaking the hand in the pipe.
Hmm. Sweet.
So, yeah, I'm a big believer in the rainbow prophecy, and I believe that, like I said, all this is set up by the Creator. Everything that we're going through, this pandemic, things have to be weeded out. Things have to be, the things have to be weeded out, and this is one way of doing it, I guess. He's got to prepare, get things prepared for the coming. So that's what I believe. That's my perspective on what's happening. He's doing things that he has to do. We might not understand why or how come it's the way it is, but I do believe, because I was told in another vision, for the time, this is what was told to me, the time passes quickly, for I come quickly. I am the Alpha and the Omega. So, yeah. So
Beautiful.
strong. I'm with you guys, and I know where you're coming from, and it's all a beautiful thing that's gonna happen. It just, we're all gonna, not everybody's gonna make it, I don't think, but I wish everybody was, but unfortunately, the ones that do will know each other and who they are and all of that. So,
Yeah, I call it God's big event,
yeah,
and we're crew. So we got to suit up and show up and do our part and keep our focus. Because of that observer effect, we have to keep our focus on what our heart says we know can be true. If our mind is saying, oh, it's all going to hell in a handbasket, but our heart somehow knows that it can be true, then it's important for us to keep our focus and align with our heart and just stay there and trust.
see, that's why I won't go to that day of mourning thingy. I won't go to that on Thanksgiving Day. I don't want no part of that negative. Most people don't go, as far as I know. Maybe some of them do, but for the majority, I come from a Christian tribe. We're Christian people, and we don't want no part of that.
Yeah, it's a low vibration, and you just feed
just
that low
helps.
vibration if you put your attention there.
Yeah, it's not if anybody's there, it'll be Satan. It's that.
Uh-oh.
Well, we go to the National Day of Mourning and we hand out buttons. We infiltrate and we hand out buttons that say, we are one, we are family. And we give them out so that to raise the vibration. And we're counting on the fact.
Finger.
Hmm?
They don't give you the finger, because I saw one native guy giving the finger to one of the floats of the forefathers. I have a picture of it. I'll have to say, boy, I couldn't believe it. It was I won't say who it was. I know who the person was that did it, but
Yeah, well, we're just playing out all that divisiveness, all that pain and trauma, and it's playing itself out. So we just bless it and keep our attention on the highest thing we can within our knowing.
So can I jump in here and see if anybody has a question for about this? We just have a few more minutes. If you have a question, Jeanne, you're on mute. Just put the space bar down and keep it down while you're talking.
Oh, and keep it down. Okay, got it.
There you are.
I just want you to know that I am with you all the way. I am so happy that I took part in this because I love the way you put this together. It's absolutely beautiful, the whole thing. And I'm just getting ready to take Greg Braden and Nassim Harriman's 8-week
yay.
class. And I am looking forward to that so much because you have done so much for me in terms of what you have presented. But I'm also looking forward to this because I did a paradigm shift in my late 50s. It's in the late 1990s. And all of my teachers, not all of them, but I mean, some of my teachers insisted that when the scientists get this and give it out, then people will understand. It won't be woo anymore. That is my thing. I want to write a book. It's no longer woo because
Yay, you go, girl.
I have been getting ready to write about my experiences through that paradigm shift and the ancient tradition, the ancient techniques that I learned, and they worked. And now we'll know why they work because we are a part of the universe and the universe is alive and it's within us and we're in it and it's all together. Yeah.
And
So-
it's all love.
And it's all love. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank
What a
you.
beautiful point to end on. It's all love.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for your feedback because I was hoping it wasn't boring and that it hung together for you because we try to tailor make it for the audience and for the circumstances. So hopefully it worked. It sounds like it worked for you, Janae.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Right on.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Does anybody else have a quick question? Nope. Okay. Well, I'd just like to say thank you so much for your presentation. You know, Paul and I were back in Massachusetts, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, and we visited the Mayflower and the visitor center there, and they had this true story of the Pilgrims, which we didn't know. So it was nice to have that from you, and I'm quite with you as far as what's happening in the future, and that, you know, we're going to make it, and we are making it. I think we can't not make it, actually. So thank you very much. You guys are hanging in there beautifully for being so late back there.
Well, I don't know if you even feel it. And look at Barbara. She's looks
I
as
know.
bright.
You guys are
See,
more bright-eyed than we are.
Yeah, we're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed out here in Massachusetts.
Right, yeah.
So what a treat, Dottie.
Thank you so
so
much.
much. And
Oh,
thank you,
Everybody.
ladies, for coming
Barbara,
on.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Barbara. It was wonderful hearing your
Thank you.
story, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, coming from your heart, Barbara, and it's just so great. And she's just a vehicle of love. And to have it come from a native heart and spirit is so important at this time. And this pilgrim story, for her to come forward with this pilgrim story right here, right now, because it's the founding story of this nation. And it's been trashed by revisionist history. And a nation's origin story is key to its psychological well-being. And we feel that the nation is morally paralyzed because it's ashamed of its origin story. And there's this gem, this beautiful gem that sits here between our ancestors, because my ancestors were at that 3-day harvest celebration. I'm a Mayflower descendant, and her ancestors were there. So here we are now going forth in the energy of our ancestors for the future and speaking to folks like you in this global summit that we're going to be on the 24th. to get it out. And that's going to be the beginning of a series of conversations with Humanity Rising. And on Sunday, there's also Sacred Sundays with Scott Cadamus. We're going to be on with him as well. So Zoom has given a global platform for ideas, and it's just such a blessing. The pandemic did that.
Right.
Mhm, mhm.
Oh,
And we wouldn't be talking like this if it wasn't for that. Wasn't for the
Yeah.
Pandemic. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
One more.
One
Can
more.
can I do one more? Barbara, I'm so sorry I left you out when I was saying thank you, and I thank you so much. I also am a Mayflower descendant, the Brewster family, and you've really
That's right.
added to my knowledge.
Brewsters.
Yeah.
Her father, through her father, she's from the Brewster side and the Hopkins and the native, all three.
Wow.
so Janae, one thing, Janae, is that your name? So Brewster was a key separatist. They're different from the Puritans. So just so you understand that Brewster was a phenomenon. He was publishing seditious books in Leiden
Mhm.
against the king. And they sent a party out to get him, and they destroyed his printing press, and he had to go into hiding.
Yeah.
And he had to come over on the Mayflower in hiding, and he became the elder Brewster for the Pilgrims in the New World. And so he's big medicine. And
I
but-
haven't been, when I was researching, it was 10, 15 years ago, and I didn't find very much on him. I did find bits and pieces of that. Also that William Bradford was with that family from the time he was an adolescent.
Right.
So they were, yeah.
Yes,
I got to do more research now because there's obviously more out there.
Yeah, and we have it wasn't it a Brewster story that we have on that we interviewed, what's her name? What was Brewster's story? So anyway, Brewster's a big deal. And we have a video that I can send you if you send me an email and ask me, because one of the women from Scrubby, who's a
English-
scholar, what's her name? I can't remember her name, but
Sue
she's
Allen.
Sue Allen. We taped her telling the Brewster story.
Oh,
So
wow.
write me an email and I'll send you a link to it.
I'll do that. Thank you.
All right.
I'm getting ready to put all of this together for my children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
Ancestral
Either
lineage.
way,
Yeah.
that's big medicine.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, friends, what a treat.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. Unmute and say goodbye. Good night. And
Night.
great to see
Fun
you
seeing
all.
you.
And,
Bye.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Funny, there weren't any men showing up for this.
There
Well,
was one.
Paul was on for a minute.
Yeah, your
on.
husband.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's carry on, ladies.
Right.
It was me.
Does this
Yeah,
guy?
Andrew.
And Andrew, yay, Andrew.
He was holding up the mails.
There you go.
So wonderful to be with you,
It's
ladies.
been an honor.
Thank
Thank
you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Dottie.
Dottie.
Barbara,
Thank you,
thank you
Barbara.
for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you.
You, thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
See you tomorrow, Connie.
Yep.
See you soon, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, Andrew, thank you.